hear yourself speak Spanish. It's cringe as hell, but baby, you gotta do it. So 6 months ago, I posted a video about my current Spanish learning routine. So I will be fluent in Spanish in 2023, okay? I wanna update y'all because the end of the year is here. It's been 11 months since I've been consistent with learning Spanish. A lot has changed, and the new year's coming up. So I'm sure you have your New Year's resolution is to learn Spanish. I'm sure it is, okay? So let me help y'all out. I now have a Spanish tutor. Before, when I did my previous video, I had a language exchange partner. Because I feel like there was nothing that really like kept us binded to each other, meaning there was no payment, in my opinion, shit always got hectic. So somebody, either me or them, had an appointment or something came up, and I think it's because we're kind of voluntarily doing this language exchange. There's nothing really binding us, so essentially didn't work out. However, I did learn a lot, so I'm not going to say that it was a bad experience, but I think because it was just like there's no payment involved in this, it kind of just feathered out. So I found a tutor on Preply.com. I use the app too as well, and my tutor lives in Venezuela, and only charges me about $4 an hour, which is perfect for my budget. Okay, so we meet twice a week for an hour at 8 a.m. in the morning, Monday and Tuesday, to get it right out the way. I don't have to procrastinate and be like, oh, I gotta learn Spanish later. I get it out the way before I walk my dog, before I go to work, all of those things. So that has been extremely helpful than me just trying to rely on a language exchange partner. And also because she has lessons prepped and she learns, like, she's certified Spanish teacher, it's different than somebody that just speaks the language naturally. Like, I noticed I wasn't really that good of an English teacher when I was with my language exchange partner. So her having prepped lessons for me to talk about, it has helped me retain Spanish and improve my conversational Spanish in 2 months. Highly recommend you get a tutor. There's so many affordable options on Preply.com. They're not sponsored. Hopefully they will sponsor me one day, because baby, y'all got my Spanish sounding good, okay? Next, I like to watch a Netflix series, and I only watch one episode a day. I think before I was trying to like watch a whole bunch of Spanish series and this, that, and third, and it's like, that doesn't necessarily help me really retain the language. Yes, I'm listening to Spanish, but like, when you're watching TV to learn a language, you have to be intentional. So what I like to do is watch it. I put my phone and devices in another room, and I'll take notes on the things that I'm hearing, the different vocabulary words and things like that, and try to recognize the words that I do understand. And then I'll watch another episode the next day. So I try not to binge watch them. I try not to just watch a whole bunch of shows. I'm trying to be very intentional with my listening. So pick a series that you know you're going to enjoy and slow down the process. Don't binge watch it. Try to do an episode a day, or like maybe one episode at the beginning of the day and one at night. But be intentional when you are watching TV to learn a language. Read this one, baby. You're going to have a hard time because this is going to be so cringe. You have to read out loud. Reading in your head, it's not going to help you be a better speaker. It's just not. I know it sounds cringe to hear yourself, but I love reading out loud. And one of the things that that has helped me so I'm not bored when I'm reading is I just read Instagram captions in Spanish. I follow a lot of Latin artists on Instagram, and I just read their comments. A lot of their, not read their comments, but I'll read their captions, and sometimes I'll read the comments to see the responses. But they'll be making captions about like their tours coming up, an event they just went to, so they're like thanking all the guests and all the people. I just read that because, one, that's interesting content, because that's why I follow in the first place, but also it teaches me vocabulary I would never think to learn. If you read a Spanish book to learn a language, you're not going to hear nothing about concert, about booking tickets online to get a concert, a wait time. I'm gathering vocabulary that I wouldn't have got from a textbook. So reading intentionally and reading out loud. Hear yourself speak Spanish. It's cringe as hell, but baby, you got to do it. Next, I have a Latin music playlist. I listen to the same music in rotation. Like, I'll just put it on my playlist and press the shuffle button. I think this is much better than trying to just listen to all the Latin music possible, because by listening to the same songs over and over again, I'm getting familiar with the accent, remembering certain words because I'm able to sing along to them better. So rotating the same music over and over again, baby, it's helping my comprehension so much more. So if you want my Latin playlist on Apple Music, I'm leaving it in the description box below. It's lit, boo. Don't do me. It's keep your study sessions short, sweet, and very relevant. Hear me out. It's easy to get intimidated with learning language because it's like, oh, I don't want to sit there for an hour and a half, 2 hours to learn a language. You don't have to. If you know at the beginning of your study session what you're about to learn, how you want to learn it, it's easy to get a 25-30 minutes study session out the way. For example, right now with my tutor, we're really focusing on irregular verbs and being able to use them in conversation and understand how to conjugate them properly. So when I have a study session, I focus on 3 to 5 irregular verbs when I go on my own, and I try to have conversations with myself with those irregular verbs. I try to write as many sentences down, even if the grammar is terrible. Like, it's getting my mind to be able to think and problem solve in this language. So if you keep them short and sweet, you can do 30-minute sessions a day and still retain a lot. You don't have to have a 2-hour window when you're studying a language. This is why I diversify the way that I learn the language. I'm studying with a tutor. I'm listening to music. I'm watching one episode of a YouTube series. I'm having a 30-minute session with myself. This is stuff that you can do throughout the day without sitting down and doing it. When I listen to Latin music, I'm walking my dog. I'm on my way to work. When I am studying with my tutor, that's 1 hour in the morning before I have to do anything. So I can just get the rest of my day going. When I'm watching a TV series, that's my free time. So I'm not having to rearrange or adjust too much of my life to incorporate the language into my everyday. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you can be intentional with what you're going to study that day, you can make it a 30-minute session. 30 minutes, you was going to spend 30 minutes scrolling on your phone. That's nothing. 24 hours a day, you got it. Okay? Next, I taught my dog Spanish. So I have a video on me teaching my dog Spanish, but this has allowed me to speak Spanish a lot. Like I said, when I read, I have to read out loud so I can hear myself. So when I speak to my dog in Spanish, sometimes I've even spoke to my dog in Spanish around my dog tutor, like if he's barking or something in the back, and she'll like correct me on the correct enunciation on what to say to him. So if you have a dog, talk to him in Spanish. If you're getting a dog, talk to him in Spanish. But that has been a way that I can, obviously he can't talk back to me, but it's keeping me speaking Spanish, even when, I don't have nobody to talk to. Next, as boring as this is, you have to have some type of a formal textbook. I have one that I've been using all year, and at the beginning of the year, I was so hyper-focused on this. I was like, I need to have a textbook because I need to learn the formal way to speak Spanish and this, that, and the third. While that is true, it's taken away time that I could be using studying the language with actual relevant information. For example, at the very beginning of one of those chapters in that textbook, there's a chapter on like insects and animals and things like that. I don't have conversations about bugs and animals on a regular basis in English, so I'm definitely not going to when I speak Spanish. So while that textbook is helpful, I don't need to be spending so much time learning the name of every insect and every animal that exists. That's not a good use of my time. If my goal is to have conversations with people, if my goal is to be able to go to a Mexican restaurant and order food, if my goal is to be able to navigate an airport, if my goal is to be able to go grocery shopping in a Latin grocery store, like learning about insects, if those are my goals, is not necessary. Maybe you work with insects and it is in a Spanish speaking environment. That makes sense for you. But a textbook is very important because it helps you get your grounding, your foundation of the language. But try not to focus on like learning everything and reading, like learning the textbook front to start and being so focused. I try to do like a couple pages twice a week, but that's not my number one priority when it comes to consuming Spanish information to learn. Go back to rule number 1 where I said I have to talk to my Spanish teacher twice a week, and that has helped me retain my Spanish. This is the most important way that you are going to learn a language. You have to speak to somebody. The worst thing you could possibly do is wait to learn a certain amount of vocabulary and sentences and phrases and then go and speak to somebody. That makes no sense. You have to talk to somebody. Obviously it's intimidating. Obviously it's going to be embarrassing. Obviously you're like, oh my God, I sound ridiculous. Oh well, you are never going to have a better opportunity to correct yourself, to retain the language, and to just outright learn the mistakes that you would probably make if you tried to learn it on your own. The amount of just vocabulary and immediate correction I've been able to gain from having a tutor and only speaking to them for 1 hour Even if you don't get a tutor, if you know somebody who speaks Spanish and y'all can talk all the time, you have to. But do not wait to get a certain level of information to talk to somebody. Start the moment you know you want to learn Spanish. Find a resource of somebody to speak to. This is America. If you're watching this, you're probably in America. The Spanish speakers are everywhere. I have a lot of Mexican neighbors. There's a Mexican restaurant in walking distance. There's a Mexican grocery store in walking distance. I don't gotta go out of my way to speak to somebody in Spanish. So if you have somebody to talk to, that is what's going to help you be a Spanish speaker. Not these textbooks, these apps, this music, these Netflix shows. That's great to help you get there. But if you don't talk to nobody in this, everything I just said is going to be a waste of your time. All this advice, all of the videos that I have of me documenting my process on Spanish, all of this is a waste of your time if you are not talking to a human being who is a fluent Spanish speaker.